India is holding its first major election since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. 70 million people are eligible to vote in the state of Bihar. It is a poll being seen as a test of how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has handled the pandemic. At the same time, India's coronavirus infections approach 8 million.
Millions of people are voting in Bihar, one of India's poorest states. Many are without masks, and social distancing has been largely ignored. To reduce crowding, polling will take place in 3 phases over the span of 2 weeks. Unemployment and the cost of living have become major election issues. Millions in the state have lost their jobs since Prime Minister Modi imposed a strict lockdown in March. Migrant workers had to walk for days or even weeks just to get back home as transport links were abruptly suspended and businesses in big cities shut down. Mr. Modi has headlined major rallies in Bihar in the run-up to these polls. He's promised to create millions of new jobs and vowed to offer free COVID-19 vaccines to all Bihar state residents if his party wins.
Well, Ishan Garg joins us live now from New Delhi. So, Ishan, Mr. Modi's handling of the pandemic being put to the vote for the first time. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. This is a referendum on Prime Minister Modi's handling of the pandemic at the federal level, his coalition's handling of the pandemic at the state level in Bihar, and of course on the popularity of Mr. Modi himself. He's an immensely popular leader across India, but the bulk of his popularity actually comes from the northern part of India, usually called the Hindi heartland, the area where most people speak the language Hindi, and Bihar is an essential component of that. And in this election, it will be a crucial test to figure out how Mr. Modi is doing, not only in Bihar, but also what's the mood of the Hindi heartland, which constitutes more than 40% of India's population. One of the things that we have to remember here is that the first few steps that the government took when the pandemic really took its worst shape in India back in March was to impose a massive lockdown. And as we heard earlier, it led to a massive migrant exodus from urban centers like Delhi and Mumbai. And most of those people are actually from the states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. And hundreds of thousands of those people are going to be asking the question this time around: why were they subjected to that? Why did the government not put in place a policy that helped them get to their houses quicker? Why some of their friends and family members had to walk hundreds of kilometers? And why in some cases they had to pay the bus tickets and the train tickets just in order to get back home? But having said all of that, Prime Minister Modi does remain a popular leader. He does have challenges coming from the regional parties who allege that Prime Minister Modi has completely botched up the implementation of the lockdown and has not been able to get the pandemic under control.
Speaking of the pandemic, Ishan, are there concerns that the polls themselves will make the coronavirus situation even worse?
Absolutely, and we have heard from experts who have said time and again that the pandemic will get worse as these massive rallies of hundreds of thousands of people are being organized in Bihar. The experts are saying that these could act as super spreader events, and on top of that, you've got the Hindu festive season just around the corner, and experts say that these two events combined can actually take the COVID-19 tally in the state of Bihar up by about 40%. And the fact that Bihar does not have the best healthcare infrastructure in the country does not help the problem at all. And we're also seeing that the people in Bihar are slightly worried about the COVID-19 problem as well. So the latest figures that have come out at about 4 p.m. local time suggest that the voter turnout at the polling booths has remained well below 50%. And it's expected to stay around 50% as the polling continues. So we are seeing a very clear indication that people are really scared of the virus, and which is why Prime Minister Modi's government is actually promising free vaccine in the state. This is something that caused a massive uproar in the state, but the government is committed that it's going to provide free vaccines for all in the state. And at the same time, it continues to say that the virus cannot dictate the way people live. And conducting elections at a time when more than 60 countries have postponed elections is really fits well with the overall philosophy of the BJP government, which really says that people must now learn to get on with their lives.